Welcome to TV on TV. I'm State Representative Tommy Vitolo. You're watching Brookline Interactive Group. Today is Thursday, February 13th, and we have a great show for you today. Our guest today is Executive Director of Hospitality Homes, Deborah Pepper, who I've gotten to know through my work in the State House. It's a pre-recorded interview from just a few days ago. And we're going to roll that after the break. But first, as always, we want to run through the news. Concerns continue to rise after the gutting of the United States Agency for International Development. Countries around the world are looking for ways to supplement the agency's funding for programs like HIV prevention, media access, and education. The Consumer Price Index rose 0.5% last month, over the expected 0.3%, the biggest jump since August 2023. Federal Reserve Chair Jerome Powell projected skepticism over further rate cuts. He did not speculate about the price of eggs. A 63-year-old teacher from Pennsylvania, Mark Fogel, was returned from a Russian prison earlier this week. Mr. Fogel was arrested in Russia for allegedly carrying medically prescribed marijuana in 2021. Massachusetts joined a multi-state lawsuit challenging the Trump administration's efforts to cut funding to university health researchers. A Boston federal judge blocked the administration's effort to limit funds distributed by the NIH Monday. The MBTA is experimenting with AI technology in Alston to speed up bus trips on the 57 and 66. The pilot program alerts the light that a bus is coming and extends the green light until the bus has made its way through the intersection. The trials show 8% decrease in average bus travel time. It remains unclear if AI performs better than traditional TSP, transit signal prioritization technology. Federal transit investigators are gathering track and train inspection records, continuing the investigation into what caused two Green Line trains to crash into each other in Somerville on Sunday. 4 train operators and 1 passenger were sent to the hospital with minor injuries. The town of Brookline launched the Heartbeat Project earlier this month, a program that focuses on hands-only CPR and AED training. Trainings will be conducted at Town Hall on February 20 and 27 from 9 a.m. to 2 p.m. A former paraprofessional at the Hayes School was arrested Friday on charges of possessing child pornography and enticing a child under 16. John Gavin worked at the Hayes School from January to August 2020. Court records show none of the alleged crimes occurred during his employment in Brookline. Hannah Peterson, a Brookline High School junior, placed first at the MIAA Nordic Ski Championship on Tuesday. Congratulations, Hannah. Folks, that's the news. I want you to stay tuned. And on the flip side, we've got a great interview recorded just a few days ago with Deborah Pepper, the Executive Director of Hospitality Homes. Stay tuned. And welcome back to TV on TV with me, State Representative Tommy Vitolo, here on Brookline Interactive Group. And as promised, we have a great guest today. We have Deborah Pepper, the Executive Director of Hospitality Homes. Deborah, thanks for coming on the show.
Thank you so much for inviting me, Representative Vitolo.
Tommy, please.
Oh.
Now, look, what the guests don't know is that you and I have met in a professional setting. You've come to my office where I'm at now. You can see in the background, right? To talk about your organization. And I felt like it really captured a lot of Brookline values, and Brookline being so close to Longwood Medical Area, it really has an opportunity to be even more helpful for hospitality homes. So I asked you to come on the show to tell us all about it, so that the viewers can get a better feel for it. But before we talk about hospitality homes, I always ask all of my guests, Deborah, what have you been doing your whole life? What brings you here?
Well, I've had a really wonderfully rich life. I have an eclectic professional background. And I also have lived in different parts of the country. I love to tell the story. I was born in California, and my dad got a promotion. And so we headed to the Far East, which was fascinating. And for our family, that meant Colorado. And then he got another promotion, and we headed to further east, which was then Massachusetts. And most of the family said, "Good luck." They they had only heard about this this lovely state from reading, and they just knew it was cold and far away. So, and I've been here for a very, very long time now, appreciating all that Massachusetts and Greater Boston has to offer.
Well, we're delighted you've made your way all the way. There's not much that's farther east than Massachusetts. What you go, Maine is a little farther east. You can move to Eastie, probably farther east than we are. Um, but now you're with Hospitality Homes. Um, that sounds, homes are nice. Hospitality is nice. What do you do? What's the story?
So, Hospitality Homes is this wonderful nonprofit that's been in existence for 42 years. We provide housing to families that come to Boston for medical treatment from all over Massachusetts, New England, the country, and the world. And the concept was really uh, an idea that a couple of really heartwarming, compassionate people had. They saw that people coming to this area needed a place to stay and realized they had an empty guest room. So that's really the core of what we do. We provide housing in volunteer host homes for these families so that they don't have the cost of a hotel, but they also have a really personal connection to somebody while they're here traveling this medical journey. And what I like about it, well, I like everything about it, to be honest with you, except that most times we're helping people that are sick, is that it's any hospital, any age, any diagnosis. So uh, very inclusive, and that means we see a lot of different situations, which I think is really wonderful. And I remember distinctly talking to you in your office, and besides being kind to have a meeting with me and very smart, we talked about some interesting things. What I really appreciated was you made the connection between what we do and your own experiences. You are very clearly knowledgeable about what it means to have a family member that needs care. And so I guess in a nutshell, that's what Hospitality Homes does. And I will say I became a volunteer host in 2016, which maybe we can talk a little bit about later. Um, we've always had a few donated apartments. Once COVID started, we had to change our model a little bit. And now we have a variety of ways that families can come and stay with us so that they can be near their loved one, be safe if they're immune compromised, and have somebody connected to them while they're in this area.
So you mentioned that you have some apartments, but you also said people are hosts, and you have been, in fact, I think you still are a host. And so the sort of if you have a spare bedroom, tell us what it means to be a host. What does a host need to offer? And what should a host expect? How does the host manage all of this? What is it like to be a host?
Well, I talked a little bit about my background because I think my parents were very good at instilling um, a little bit of community and giving back as part of raising me. So that was kind of a piece of the puzzle for myself. When I saw Lester Holt talk about hospitality homes on the NBC Nightly News, I wanted to volunteer. And the reason is because I have a house that I really love. It has a guest room, and I don't always have a guest. And so that sits empty a good portion of the time. So it seemed like a natural to use my uh, clean private bedroom and access to a clean, in my case, and in most cases, better private bathroom for people to come and stay. And what I liked about being a host when I first volunteered with my husband, you call the shots. You say, this is a family that I think I can host, or this time works for me, or 1 week is better for us than three. So it's a very easy experience. And it, as a host, I was really impressed with the team at Hospitality Homes that knows every host and every family and is a matching service. They know who's going to be a good fit. So you don't really have to worry so much because this group of people at Hospitality Homes knows your profile. They know what it's like to come and live at Doug and I's house um, with our dog Stella, and they know the families that are a good fit for us based on the needs of the family.
And so, if you're a host, is it sort of an ongoing thing? Or you mentioned, if you're going to be out of town, but what if you only want to be a host once in a long while? What if this is sort of a things the stars have to align? Is that okay? Or do you have to really commit?
100% it's fine. There's never a time that you're asked, I mean, you're asked to host and you always can say yes, or you can always say that's not convenient, or that's too much time, or there's really a lot of flexibility. And that's another thing I appreciate. I had my mom stay with us during Thanksgiving. So we were offline as hosts for about 3 weeks. And so, the program team just knows that and works to accommodate that.
Got it. Got it. And so let's sort of think through the guests a little bit, the other side of the coin.
Hmm.
Um, you said guests, you've also said family. And so what I'm sure there are a variety of answers to this question, but what your clients, right? The people who come to you and ask for help and you match them. Um, they show up at somebody's door. What do they look like? Who's there? Who's with them? What is that like?
Yeah, so the program has a couple of key things that I think will be helpful to people watching this. One is every family that's coming for housing fills out an application. They give us a character reference. We do a background check, and there's a patient involved, and the patient always has at least one caregiver. So, as a host, it's not my job to take care of somebody. They need to have the caregiver be with them. Or, for example, we tend to host a lot of families that have young children. So it's usually the mom and dad, maybe the patient is in the hospital the whole time, which is the young child, and maybe there's a sibling. So, but the dynamics vary. And so, what does somebody look like? That part is actually the fun part. I can remember the first family that came to stay with us. They had a 3-month-old having heart surgery. They were from North Carolina. He was in the military. She was getting her master's in social work, and they were referred to two hospitals, Duke and Boston Children's. And based on what their daughter needed, they chose Boston Children's. So that was the very first family. We're still friends with them today. Other times, families come from different parts of the country, and that's interesting. You get to learn a lot about what it's like to be from Indiana or Iowa or Florida. I kind of like that piece of it because I really enjoy those dynamics of learning about somebody else from someplace else. Um, and I guess the common thing that I always say is when people learn that Doug and I are hosts, they always say, "Oh, that's so kind of you," and uh, it's it's such a wonderful feeling to give back in this way. And I'm telling you, almost every host I've ever talked to will say, without being prompted, you get so much more than you give.
Now, I'm sure some hosts are like, whether or not they are actually B&B operators, they've got that vibe where, they've got the welcome packet with the tea cards, and they're making porridge in the morning or pancakes, and they're retired, or they have a lot of time and they're spending time with the family when they're in the evening. I could imagine there are people like that. I could also imagine, though, that there are people who could be hosts who have busy, chaotic lives of their own, and they have a bedroom, but what they don't have are 2 hours a day to become friends with someone. That's not that they don't want to, it's that their life is pretty full. Um, can people who are, frankly, quite busy still be hosts, or is it just not, doesn't work?
100%. I'll go back to, and I talked about the team here. So Hospitality Homes has 6 employees. 3 of them are responsible for that matching, getting to know everybody. And so our hosts come in all different sizes, shapes, personalities, just like the guests or the families do. And again, it really goes back to a customized way of making sure that you're matching the right person. So we have hosts that say hello and I hope you had a good day and goodbye. I mean, they don't have that much interaction, to your point, because they're busy people. They may not be particularly social. The guest room may be off on its own somewhere. 100% fine. And those families that stay with those hosts are looking for a situation more like that. When somebody stays with my husband and I, we very much respect their privacy, but we have kind of an open concept home. So if they want to say hello, I'm right there to say hello. And again, the team knows, they get to know the personalities of the families coming and the hosts themselves.
I can imagine in my case, I like hanging out with people, but also I'm really busy. And I can imagine intending to spend a lot of time with the family, and then, oh no, tonight I got to go to this thing, and tomorrow night I have this other meeting, and my kids are off playing basketball, and my wife's traveling for work, and oh my gosh, like I wanted to do all this, and maybe it doesn't work out that way. But I'm glad that um, there's a broad spectrum, and it sounds like you said um, that Hospitality Homes kind of understands the style of the host and what's a good fit for that particular family, and tries to take that into account.
100%. And remember, the only requirements are, oh, and I should say hosts actually also have to have a character reference, pass a background check, and there's a home inspection so that the team can look at what the situation is and really be able to describe to somebody, this place, it has, like, I have a staircase, and that's in the application. My guest room is on the second floor, so families are going to need to be able to climb a flight of stairs, which they put on the application, but my team can say it's a wide staircase, it curves around a little bit. They really want people to know what they're getting into. And the minimum, only thing you're required as a host is to pass those checks and balances, and then access to a private bedroom that's clean, and a private bathroom, ideally, it's also clean and accessible. That's it. That's the bare minimum. Now, if you come stay with me, Tommy, you're going to get a really nice, strong cup of coffee in the morning. Not a requirement, but why would I make coffee for myself and not give some to you, right? So then after that, those 2 requirements, everything else is really up to the way the host and the guest decide to interact.
And I think you alluded to this, but I just want to sort of dial in. What's an example of a particularly short stay? What's an example of a particularly long stay? Knowing that the host and the family know the length of time ahead of time. But what's a short stay? Is it overnight? Is it that quick?
We have some hosts that prefer 1 night, 2 nights maximum. Then we have some on the other end of the spectrum that are very fine and comfortable with 4 to 6 weeks. And you have to think about not just the hosting experience, but the patient's journey. In this case, if you've got somebody who is undergoing proton beam therapy for cancer, that's a 6-week treatment. Or I had a lovely couple from New Hampshire. He had served 3 tours of duty and he has multiple myeloma and he was waiting on a bone marrow transplant. And so he was in the hospital while he was waiting, but his wife, Lisa, stayed with us. And so that was about a 6 week stay. And that's longer than we usually do. But Lisa and I were fine and we really uh, we we fell into a routine that was super easy. So sometimes there are families that we need that are able to accommodate that longer stay. Everything is driven by what the patient needs and what is going on with them in the hospital.
And what happens when, uh, unfortunately, what was to be a 2 week stay now has to be extended because something didn't go as maybe was expected? That surely happens.
100%. You know, the flexibility factor is a piece of this. And I talked to we have some hotel partners, very select. We have some donated apartments, and then we have our volunteer hosts. Everybody needs to understand the flexibility. And, there are some times when somebody gets to go home early, which is the best news possible. But when somebody needs to extend a stay, again, this program team here that I think works miracles with a little serendipity sprinkled in, they will call me as a host and say, your guest needs to stay a bit longer. And I can say, I really can't. Or how much longer? So it's really a case by case basis. And if somebody can't stay, we will, with the person that they're with now, we work to find them another place to go. Ideally, you want continuity for somebody who's going through all of this stuff too, but it's 100% up to the host and the program team to figure it out.
So you all have been at this for 40 odd years. And I'm sure everything is just staying exactly the same forever, right? Like the world is a peaceful, quiet place, and you just keep doing what you're doing, right?
Um, what's the diplomatic way of saying not right?
Not at all, right?
The
Perfect.
opposite of that. Well, I mean, the core values of the program haven't changed. I mean, it's really a great, lovely organization because it's always focused on compassion. And, what would I want if it was me in this situation? So that hasn't changed. And the fact that we have always been every hospital, every diagnosis hasn't changed either. What has changed, and I don't think I mentioned, I started as executive director in 2020, a week or two before a pandemic. So we shifted. I don't like to say pivoted, but we shifted around so that we could stay open. So we used a very few host homes that had private entrances. And that's when we really ramped up our corporate furnished apartment partners, our hotel partners, and we started to really ask people to think about whether they had an apartment that they could donate to us. We always had a few donated apartments. We really appreciate our good friends, Wingate, Reservoir Towers. 26 years ago, were the first to identify that an apartment could come in handy for somebody with ambulatory issues or immune compromised challenges. So we've had that one apartment and then we've slowly added. So when I started, we had 3 and we are now up to a significant number. I'll say about 15 that are either donated directly or through some grant funding that we've received specifically for that purpose. The other thing that's changed is because I believe we stayed open during the pandemic and we're one of the few medical housing programs that did. We got to be known a little bit more. So in 2020, we had more nights of housing than ever before, which was about 7,600. And in 2024, we provided 12,000 349. So the amount of money we were able to save families last year was about 3.7 million. I know you were joking, but we've always been a way for people to defray the cost of staying in Boston. But if you look at what a nightly hotel rate is now compared to 5 years ago, even, it's crazy.
Well,
And
and I want to talk about that for just a minute, if you'll allow me, right?
sure.
So families have a couple of options. They can pay a fortune to live within 20 minutes of the hospital, maybe a walk down Longwood Ave or a quick T ride. They're probably trying to avoid driving because the traffic and the cost of parking are so high. Or they could pay a little bit less and be, depending on traffic, between 40 minutes and 2 hours away because they're in like South Quincy, which isn't that far away, right? Um, and if your kid, if your mom, if your spouse is in Boston, this is not, yeah, they broke a bone in their hand. This is the real stuff.
Mhm.
And saving people the stress of finding that money, the challenge of being that far away, traveling in from somewhere that's 40 minutes, 2 hours away, um, and the uncertainty of all of that. It's not just the money; it's all of these things at a time when their loved one needs their attention, not to be focused on these sort of petty realities, but focused on their family.
Mhm.
So, I mean, you can talk about the dollars, but it's so much more than that.
100%. I mean, you know, our one of our taglines is bringing home and heart to healthcare in Boston. But it's not insignificant, the value of having a personal connection, having somebody to be there while you're going through this stressful situation, having a home to come home to. I mean, I talked to our guests, like what after they're, when they're ready to leave, like how has it been for you? And some of it is a home to come home to that's a home away from home for us. That's key. It's somebody to help you figure out how to navigate. What's the best place to get pizza when I'm on break during a visit to Boston Children's or whatever it might be. We also know that it's demonstrated that reducing stress is good for people. If you're trying to heal, you don't need stress on top of that. If you're trying to heal and your loved ones aren't with you, that's really dramatic. And so I feel very proud that we're working to make sure that these patients and families are surrounded with familiarity themselves, first and foremost, and then by extension, somebody's home or someplace that they can call home while they're here.
So we have just a few seconds left. How can people help? If they're moved by this, if they want to help, how do they help?
So I'm going to give you our website, which is very easy to remember, hosp.org. The first four letters in hospital or hospitality, hosp.org. It's pretty well designed. You click on that. You can donate, which we need. We need funds to do all sorts of things for these families. There's information about volunteering, and there's my email address. I say there's never a bad conversation. So if you want to reach out to me personally, I'd love to talk more about how somebody could get involved at hosp.org.
Well, folks, I think we just had a great conversation with Deborah Pepper, Executive Director of Hospitality Homes. Deborah, thanks for everything you do, and thanks for coming on the show to share a little bit about it.
Thank you, Tommy.